All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredible promise and, honestly, the massive hidden roadblock of using AI in medical research. We hear a ton about artificial intelligence revolutionizing healthcare, but today, we're popping the hood. We're going to examine exactly how AI is poised to change the way we develop life-saving drugs, and more importantly, we're going to uncover the massive, often ignored obstacle that's currently standing right in its way.
To really get why AI is making such massive waves right now, we first have to recognize the sheer scale of the problem it's trying to solve. 10 years. That's up to a decade just to complete a traditional clinical trial. I mean, imagine being a patient waiting for a breakthrough treatment. A decade is literally an eternity. Not to mention, this agonizingly long process costs pharmaceutical companies billions of dollars, and the vast majority of drugs that enter these trials never actually make it to the market. It's a slow, incredibly expensive marathon. And that brings us to the core shift we're aiming for here. We want to move away from this slow game of trial and error and step into a rapid, predictive science. You see, traditional trials are inherently reactive. Researchers make an educated guess, they test it out, and often find out years later that they just hit a dead end. But AI-assisted trials, they promise something entirely different. They're data-driven, they're incredibly fast. Instead of reacting to failures, they aim to actually predict success. So, part 1. The clinical trial bottleneck. Let's take a look at the status quo. Just look at the sheer amount of friction involved in getting a drug from a lab bench to your local pharmacy. If you follow the journey of a hypothetical drug through these steps, every single one is a huge bottleneck, where delays and flat-out failures routinely happen. Step 1, drug discovery, is literally like looking for a needle in a molecular haystack. Step 2, patient recruitment, is notoriously difficult. Finding the exact right patients who meet all the strict criteria can stall a trial for years. Then step 3, the actual trial execution, requires meticulous monitoring and is super prone to human error. And finally, step 4, FDA approval, demands mountains of flawless evidence. At any one of these stages, a decade of work can completely unravel. Which leads us to part 2, AI's predictive superpower. Moving into predictive science.
This is where we bring in the hero of our story, artificial intelligence. AI essentially hands researchers a crystal ball, turning these trials into a highly accurate predictive science. Instead of putting a pill into a human body and just crossing our fingers to see what happens, predictive science uses massive data analysis and machine learning to forecast those outcomes computationally. Imagine being able to foresee a dangerous side effect or, identify the absolute perfect genetic match for a drug before a single physical trial even begins. That's the sheer power we're talking about here. By forecasting those side effects and pinpointing the optimal patient profiles, AI basically acts like a multi-billion-dollar, hyper-advanced sports car engine for medicine. It predicts patient outcomes with startling accuracy. It completely solves that massive recruitment bottleneck we talked about earlier by finding the right patients instantly. It foresees potential side effects, keeping everyone safer. And ultimately, it accelerates the overall timeline, potentially shaving years off that 10-year waiting period. But here's the million-dollar question, right? If we've got all this predictive superpower literally at our fingertips, why isn't every single clinical trial succeeding right now? Why haven't we cured everything? If we have this hyper-advanced engine ready to go, what is keeping it idling in the garage? Well, that brings us to part 3. The big data hurdle, or what we can call the contaminated fuel problem. Here's the deal. If AI is the engine, data is the fuel. And right now, the medical industry is trying to run a Ferrari on contaminated, cheap gas. An AI algorithm, no matter how brilliantly it's designed, is completely blind without information. It learns entirely from historical patterns. But if the data you feed it is flawed, inconsistent, or just plain messy, well, the predictions it spits out are going to be equally flawed. You wouldn't put dirty fuel into a multi-million-dollar race car, yet that's exactly what we're currently trying to do with medical AI. Because an AI algorithm is absolutely useless if it's fed a diet of messy spreadsheets, isolated data silos, and unstructured doctor's notes. And let's be real, half the time human beings can't even read a doctor's handwriting, let alone a computer program. These are the classic symptoms of our bad data. Think about it. A huge portion of our medical history is trapped in unstructured notes, sometimes literally handwritten on paper. Then you have fragmented data silos. Hospital A uses one system, Hospital B uses another, and they absolutely refuse to talk to each other. Throw in biased or incomplete patient samples and messy, non-standardized spreadsheets, and you've got a recipe for an algorithmic disaster. When you break the numbers down, you realize that the vast majority of medical data is just incredibly messy and unstructured. A massive chunk of it is tied up in unstructured notes and siloed records. That tiny little sliver left over, that is the clean, structured data. That is the only fuel currently available that our AI engine can actually process without choking. And look, this isn't just theory. Industry experts are actively sounding the alarm on this. They're confirming that until we clean up the actual information we feed these systems, the true potential of AI is going to stay locked away. The consensus across the board is clear. The algorithms are ready. The computational power is 100% there. The bottleneck has officially shifted from our technological capabilities to the sheer quality of our medical data. So, how do we fix it? Part 4. Fixing the fuel and building a high-octane pipeline. How do we take that tiny sliver of clean data and expand it into a massive, high-octane pipeline? Well, the industry is actively working on translating all this messy human data into a clean, unified language. To tackle those unstructured notes, we're deploying natural language processing. That's essentially training secondary AI programs for the sole purpose of reading and categorizing human scribbles. And to fix the data silos, there's a massive push underway to create unified, interoperable digital records that can securely flow between completely different healthcare systems. But you have to realize this is a chronological process. We have to break down the silos first, structure the historical data, and only then can we let the AI loose to find the cures of tomorrow. We simply can't skip straight to year 3. Year 1 is all about infrastructure, getting hospitals to share data safely. Year 2 is the heavy lifting of digitizing and structuring the backlog of medical history. Only when that foundation is built, in year 3, can we truly hit the gas pedal and deploy predictive AI on a clean, super reliable data pipeline. So the big takeaway from this explainer is simply this. Our technological capabilities have totally outpaced our data organization. Basically, we built the Ferrari before we built the gas station. The algorithms are sitting there waiting, eager to predict outcomes and save lives, but they are entirely dependent on us to clean up our act and provide them with the right information. I'll leave you with this to chew on. As the industry scrambles to clean up this data pipeline, could your own secure, anonymized health records be the exact fuel needed to cure a disease? Because when it comes to training the medical AI of the future, the solution isn't just happening in some high-tech lab. It's actually hidden in the medical history of every single one of us. Could your data be the key?